Welcome to the wonderful world of synthetic rope. It comes in a myriad of sizes and types and styles, many of which we won't touch on in this basic session on the handling of these lines. What you have in front of you are some samples. These ones here are polypropylene or polyethylene synthetic laid rope. And this one here is Rumuly laid rope, extensively used on the Braid. We won't be dealing with these because anything you could do in the previous videos you can do with these guys, because the past videos dealt with laid line. This is right hand lay or right hand lay. Okay, the remainder, this is 8-tack nylon. Some of our ships have this as berthing lines, except of course it's a larger diameter than this. It's nylon and stretches, which is an advantage with taking care of surging, etc. at a berth. Again, in the advanced course we will deal with plaiting this line, making an eye, etc. The next, these four are all known as single braids. They are lighter than polypropylene, lighter than water, so they float. This is commonly called, say, ski rope. There's three different ones here. We'll be dealing with these. This is a more exotic form of single braid. Again, ostensibly these are just tubes. And millimetre for millimetre of diameter, all these synthetic lines are far stronger than the natural fibres by multiples. Mainly, I think, because they are what's known as monofilament, and that is the filaments in each of these runs the whole length of the line when it's being made, whereas in a natural fibre rope it's made up of short staples that are spun together to grip and form the line. Then we come here to which is an example of a climbing rope, which can be used but not very prevalent on our ships. It's a double braid, polyester double braid. We'll be dealing with this, learning how to splice this one. This is another type of very soft line, commonly used as a berthing line on small launches and so forth. And this one here is an example of an exotic double braid. It has 3 layers. Remember, this one only has an inner core and a sheath over it. This one has 3. It's got an exotic interior, which might be Dyneema, then an outer jacket, and then a protective polyester sheath over the top. And the last example I have here is rubbish. This you often see in hardware stores, bundles of this stuff in various nice, bright, attractive colours. I saw some the other day with $7 a whole bundle of the stuff. However, never use this for any serious rope work. It looks like normal double braid, but it's not. If you open it up, it's full of rubbish. Whether they're recycled clothing, goodness knows what they put in them. Hence, and as far as I know, there's no spec sheet for them. They're just there, look handy, and probably okay for tying up parcels or roses. But never be tempted to buy one of those attractive looking bundles for any serious rope work, especially if somebody's life's involved. No way. So we won't be dealing with that little fellow. Now, with double braid, as I mentioned, there are lots and lots of, in addition to these ones, the manufacturers make a horde of other varieties of synthetic lines, a lot designed for specific purposes. Some are almost strong enough to replace wire, and they're used as such on some of the big racing yachts. However, the big advantage of these synthetic lines over the natural fibre ones is that the manufacturers produce catalogues and so on which give the details and breaking strains, etc., of their lines, so that when you're planning a job specifically, you could hunt through these catalogues and seek out the one that's ideal for your purpose. One of the things to bear in mind that out there's a lot of experience, and mainly to ask somebody who has a vessel that uses some of these exotic lines how they find them and whether they stand up to the use to which they're put. So what we'll do now is move on to having a look at the single braid and how to put an eye in it, join lengths of it together, etc. Following that, we'll then look at the double braid, this fellow here. The first thing we're going to do is join these two ends of a single braid. When you push it together like this, you'll see it's just really a hollow tube. But just before we do that, some tools that could be handy for you when you're doing this braiding or working with braided line. First, your Swedish fib. Second is a wire puller. This is simply a loop of wire with a handle on it. Heaven forbid, a cigarette lighter, a pair of scissors, a knife, and probably a spike. I've got this here. Have any of you got one of these things lying around at home? It usually came with flat pack furniture. If you have, you can take it, grind off one end to the shape like this and the other end into a round cone shape, and it's ideal as a small portable pricker or fid. Now, to do this task, first of all we have to put a line through in from the end to pass that one through there, pull the fid out. Then you take the other, go to the other side and put your fid through, and you have the two arms crossing like so, and pull it up. The next part is you have to place this inside this tube. Now you can do that by going in, say here, so you're going to have to come back to about there somewhere. So if you can push it through the tube, trying to get through the middle of it. Don't split any of the fibres if you can help it, or just don't do it. Then you take the end of that, feed it into your fid and pull back, and that captures that end. Then go to the other end and do a similar thing, going in just beyond there and carefully feed it up the centre of the line, popping out just there, just so that not on the same spot, just there. Pop that through there, push it into your fid, pull back, and the end should just slip inside there, and that's all there is to it. That will hold. If you weren't quite sure, of course, you could always put a stitch through there and a stitch through there. That would make it bulletproof. Okay, so it's joining two ends. Now may I suggest you get probably a couple of fathoms or a fathom of this line from the hardware store or boat shop to practice these systems on. Now this one here is probably a little bit on the loose side, so what you can do is push it. If you bunch that up over the end, and you can pinch it there and pull back and draw it through. Do the same on the other end. Bunch it up, pinch the line inside, and that pulls it in a bit more. Yeah, that's getting there. Just bunch it up, push it on, pinch it and pull back, and that tidies it up. Okay, joining two lengths of single braid together. Now let us look into some splicing with this single braid, remembering it's a tube, single tube, and it's quite flexible. With the end of the tube, at this stage you can actually, because of the beauty of this stuff to melt at fairly low temperature, you can melt and shape the end to create a solid taper, which means you can actually do all these without the need of a fid. However, we'll use a Swedish fid just to make life easy. The first one we'll do is an eye, just working at one end of the rope. So the first thing you do is roughly work out the size of your eye, remembering that a lot of the strength or the power in this splice relies on internal friction, as you'll see when we've completed the eye. So let's say this is the size of the eye you want. So we'll pop the fid down the centre of the tube. Now you're better off coming in from the other end. So if we go around here, now this is the length of the tail, so we'll say initially take half. So just carefully feed it through the centre of the tube until you reach a point where you want to, in the throat of your potential eye splice, put the end in, pull it through, take the fid out, smooth it out. Now at this stage, if you want to put a hard eye in, you can do so. And then draw that up tight into the throat, like so. And then you can vary the rest of this. You might do it in a couple of stages. One, push it through the centre, come out through the same place here, push it through, pull back, smooth it out, and again retension it on your hard eye if that's what you're after. Now here we've got to now seal off the end, so pull it through, pass that around, and then round the back, and then around there, around the back, and into the tube, and then pull that back to settle it in, and that locks it, and there you have your eye splice only working from one end of the rope, got a hard eye in it, and it's all locked up. Probably the one disadvantage of this method is that you create a knot here. That could be by the by for this application. Incidentally, have you ever seen any of this type of line used on your ships? If you look around, you'll probably find that your life raft release lines are made of single braid. And with the ends, if you wanted to, you could take that out. You could also soften this by cutting off this hard end with a pair of scissors or a knife and cut it at a taper. Okay, that's your first eye splice. Another method of placing a soft eye in the single braid is to do an overhand knot and then bring the end back and feed it inside the tube. This creates a locking turn at the top, which determines the size of your eye. So once you've done that, you can then feed that carefully up through the tube to your designated point. Oops. And pop that in there. Check the size of your eye. So that's your eye size. And then continue to bury the rest of the line inside here, remembering that it's the friction within the tube squeezing down on this that adds to the strength of the rope, and security of the splice. In, out through the centre, that through there. Alright, and again, as with the this last piece, in there, rather than just cut it off. Through. And it disappears within the tube. Like so. So that's a soft eye. Again, not quite so convenient for putting a hard eye in it simply because of this knot here. But as a soft eye, perfectly okay. Now we'll have a look at a third method of creating a slim eye splice, which can be either a soft eye or it's not too bad for doing a hard eye, but you need to have access to both ends of your line. So first of all, you work out the size of your eye, pass your spike through it and bring that back through. Then and you, with your eye size set, pass that through there, and take the other end of your line and pop it through there. creates an overhand lock to secure the eye, and then, as in the past methods, you feed the tail down through the centre. Twist so it'll lay flat. In there. Do the same again. Notice how we've got a hard end here, we'll deal with that in a moment. Go through that hole there. Pinch the end and pull back. Alright, now to tidy this up and get rid of that hard knob, you can again either cut that off at an angle, or if you want to, you can cut the hard end off and gradually thin down this by, say, pulling half of each of these threads out and cutting them off. What we'll do is we'll just flatten that. Cut that at an angle and then pull that back and it goes inside. Provide a nice clean finish to your eye splice. Now we will take another look at a way of forming an eye in single braid. This is probably the piece de resisto of methods, and it's known as the Brahmal Eye Splice. Those using Dyneema and more exotic lines as halyards and so forth tend to use this method. Means those lines are usually pretty long, so therefore, rather than, as we saw earlier, feeding both ends through the rope, this is all done from one end, and you end up with a nice streamlined type of splice. So first of all, you have to work out the size of the eye you would like. This could be to accommodate something like a hard eye, or just as an eye, the way we'll do it. So we'll put a line, two lines right round our rope. The first one up here, this could be called point A, and the second one is point B, and that is the size of the eye we're after. So step one is to turn point A inside out. This is where your fid comes in handy. So go through, try not split a strand if you can, like so. Pop the end through there and turn it inside out. Then take the end and go round to point B and pass it through the rope, and point A comes through as well, and that turns that inside out, like so. Now the next step is to reverse this one. So if we can open that up, we'll go through this way. Just take the line pop it through and pull point B through. You have to just work this to turn the rope inside out. If you've gone the wrong way, you can just pop that through there and pull it back, and that will correct the situation. Right. Now you've got point B up here. We have to reverse that by pushing it through the rope and pulling it out. And that comes back to there. We have a crossover. That's our eye size has been preserved. That's similar to one of the earlier ones we did, except that time we used both ends. This time we're only working from one end. Now, to finish off, we have to put this tail inside there. Now, you can get rid of this knob on the end, which would leave a lump in your line. So what we'll do, we'll come back here and fit up through there and bring it out. Oops. Like so. Now put the end in and draw it back. So that puts it in there. Now I've got this piece here. What I could do is just go in here. See, a lot of the strength in these splices is the fact that when this tube is under load, it compresses onto the inside sides part of the lines and increases its grip. So pop that through there. Now to soften this up, we'll get rid of this knobby end. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can start pulling out individual strands, or you could just take some scissors and cut the hard end off with a long taper. So, and then when you milk that back, it swallows it up and gives you a nice soft finish around here. So there we have it, the Brahmal Eye Splice. And so now we have covered some basic single braid splicing. We've had a look at joining two lines together like so. That's a thicker line. This one's different colours might show it up better. We've had a look at several methods of putting an eye splice in. Here's one where you tie a thumb knot and then bury it. It locks it. This one here is a case of when you have access to both ends of the line, you can put a lock eye in. This one here was where we put the line round the back and back inside. It forms a lock. You only need to go to one end of the line for that. And of course then there's the Rumuly Eye Splice, where you can complete it all from one end of the line. There is one other I'd like to show you, and that's this one. That's single braid, and this has been spliced in a method similar to that used for 8-plat, but we won't cover that here. We'll keep that for the advanced course. Now we'll move on to the next video, which will deal with double braid.